Good afternoon. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist from Montreal, Canada on July 14th, 2025. Last week, Yemen's Ansar Allah attacked and sunk two Greek-owned cargo ships in the Red Sea. The first of these vessels was the MV Magic Seas, owned by the Greek shipping company Paragon Shipping. The second was the Eternity Sea cargo ship, owned by Greek shipping company Cosmoship Management. The Magic Seas was sunk on or about July 6th, whereas the Eternity Sea was sunk on the following day, July 7th. Shortly after the attack on the MV Magic Seas, Ansar Allah published a video which appeared to show how the attack unfolded. And here's some of what that video showed.
So, Magic Seas, this is Yemen naval forces going to Atlantic. I will repeat for the last time, Captain, you have to decrease the speed of the ship and stop the vessel immediately. To take security action for your ship safety and your crew safety, stop the ship immediately. I repeat, stop the ship immediately. For your safety and your crew safety and ship safety, you have to stop the ship immediately. Over. Captain, if you keep ignoring Yemen naval forces contact and instructions, you will bear our responsibility. I repeat, if you keep ignoring Yemen naval forces contact and instructions, you will bear our responsibility. Over.
Mayday. This is motor vessel Magic Seas, Delta 5, Golf Papa 6. The vessel needs immediately assistance. Mayday. What type of assistance you need? Rescue. The vessel will be abandoned. I need rescue for my crew. The vessel was hit by Houthis and will be sunk.
Now, to my knowledge, the owner of the ship has not contested the authenticity of the video or of the accompanying audio. And they just showed, as you saw, that the ship's crew received multiple warnings from an English-speaking spokesperson of Ansar Allah to stop the vessel or be subject to attack. And it's quite clear that the ship's captain decided to ignore that warning. Now, whatever one may think of the legality or morality of Ansar Allah's attacks on certain vessels that are transiting through the Red Sea, it's not attacking all of them. It's made quite clear that it is only attacking those that are from Israel or doing business with Israel. But in light of those warnings, I can't understand why the captain of the Magic Seas ignored the danger and refused to stop the vessel. After all that has happened in the Red Sea during the past 22 months, did the captain think that Ansar Allah was bluffing? I also have considerable difficulty believing that the ship's captain would make such a momentous decision without consulting the ship's owners. In my view, it's likely that either one of two scenarios applied. First, the captain had standing instructions before this voyage was attempted to ignore any warnings he received from Ansar Allah's military forces, if any were forthcoming. Or the other possibility is that once the warning was received, the ship's captain consulted the owner of the vessel or the whoever his superiors were at company headquarters about what he should do, and he was instructed not to stop the vessel and proceed on to its intended destination. Whoever is responsible at the end of the day for the decision not to stop the vessel, as I say, I think that was extremely irresponsible and grotesquely unfair to the ship's crew members, who presumably had little to no say in whether or not the warnings of Ansar Allah would be heeded. Now, as I mentioned, the owner of this vessel was the Greek shipping company Paragon Shipping. It was founded in Greece by a Greek shipping magnate, of whom there are several, and this one's name is Michael Boduroglu. Although Boduroglu runs the company and remains a significant shareholder of the company, many of the company's shares appear to be held by other investors. These shares publicly traded for a time, although for reasons I'm about to describe, it appears that the shares may have been delisted from any public stock exchange for public trading. There isn't a lot of information out there about Paragon Shipping, but from what I was able to find, it appears that it has been in considerable financial distress during the past 10 years. In February 2016, an industry publication called Tradewinds News reported that the company was preparing a bankruptcy filing. The company denied the claim and even went so far as to file a criminal complaint against Tradewinds in Greece with an Athens prosecutor. But according to another industry publication called Marine Insight, in fact, the company did eventually file for bankruptcy. Now, Boduroglu is not only the founder of Paragon Shipping, he's also the founder of other shipping companies, including Box Ships and All Seas Marine SA. And here you can see a photograph of Boduroglu pictured on the right. In the photo before you, he is pictured receiving the 2012 award for Greek Shipping Personality of the Year. Boduroglu is also a director of the Union of Greek Ship Owners. I understand that to be a very powerful and influential organization in Greece. After all, the oligarchy, which is comprised to a considerable degree of shipping magnates, effectively run the Greek government. Now, interestingly, Boduroglu's name appears as well in the Paradise Papers. And as some of you may recall, the Paradise Papers is a set of over 13 million confidential electronic documents relating to offshore investments in tax havens that were leaked to and published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists in 2017. And here you can see the red circle in the upper half of this image. That represents Boduroglu, and these are a number of corporations, apparently offshore corporations, which, according to the Paradise Papers, he retained interests in or was in control of in some capacity. Now, in 2015, at the height of the austerity crisis in Greece, Boduroglu publicly attacked the Greek public sector, the civil service, while denying that Greek shippers received special tax breaks. According to Euronews, Boduroglu stated at the time that the Greek government needed to go after the public sector before chasing up the shipping industry. And he was quoted as stating, there are no tax breaks for ship owners. We pay taxes in the same way as our colleagues pay them all over the world. The big problem, the reason the country amassed a huge deficit that was no longer manageable, is that we ended up with a very expensive public sector, overstaffed, expensive, inefficient, and hostile to businesses. They were not serving the purposes for which they were set up, close quote. I personally find it ironic that this shipping magnate who presided over a company that went bankrupt was lecturing the public sector in 2015 about inefficiency and managerial incompetence. Now, when reports emerged last week that the MV Magic Seas had been sunk, Boduroglu made some highly dubious claims to the media. And here you have a Reuters article which quotes Boduroglu. He says that Magic Seas, according to him, was carrying iron and fertilizers from China to Turkey, a voyage that appeared low risk as it had nothing to do with Israel, he said, adding that STEM shipping had received no warning of the attack. Well, as you saw from this video, it does appear that the captain or the crew did receive multiple warnings of the impending attack. As for the cargo of the vessel, he says it was fertilizers and iron from China to Turkey. I'm not aware of that claim having been verified by any independent authority or news organization. It may well be true, but given the propensity of Greek shippers to deal with Israel, I would not assume that vessel had a cargo that was unrelated to Israel. Maybe it did. I just don't think we should simply take Bodroglu's word for it, in part because he has a motive, given his interest in Red Sea shipping, to conceal the fact that his company has anything to do with Israel. According to media reports, there were 19 crew members on board Magic Seas, plus 3 armed security personnel. The crew, it's reported, were rescued by a passing merchant vessel, and all were well and safe. As I mentioned at the outset of this report, the other vessel sunk by Yemeni forces last week was called the Eternity Sea. The company, again, as I mentioned, that owned this vessel was Cosmoship Management in Greece, which is reported to own about 33 ships. I guess it's now 32. The principal of Cosmoship is Nick Savvis. There's not much information about Savvis that is publicly available, but here you can see the rather corpulent honcho of this shipping company, featured in an article about Trump's return to the White House. And in this article, Savvis is quoted as praising Trump for promoting fossil fuels, and Savvis says he felt vindicated by Trump's lavish support for big oil. According to ship tracking websites, the Eternity Sea was en route to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia from Berbera, a port in Somalia, when it was struck. The Cosmoship recently agreed to purchase ships, by the way, that have been chartered to Israeli shipping company Zim. And you'll see here's a report from an industry publication. In the second paragraph, MB Shipbrokers noted the deal. This is a deal to purchase 2 secondhand cargo ships, was concluded on private terms with both vessels chartered to liner operator Zim until mid-2028. So according to this deal, Cosmo Shipping will now become the owner of vessels chartered by the giant Israeli shipper Zim. Zim, by the way, has had a particularly difficult year, I must say. From the beginning of 2025 to the current time, its share price has fallen by almost 32%, almost a third. For a company of this size in particular, that's catastrophic. And given the debts the company currently has in the business environment, the destruction of Israel's economy, the outlook is not looking rosy for this. I think it's the largest shipping company in the genocidal entity. The Eternity Sea carried 22 crew members and 3 guards at the time of the attack last week. 10 members of the crew have been rescued. Another 6 are believed to have been taken hostage, and tragically 9 are now confirmed or presumed dead. Today, a spokesperson for the ship manager confirmed that the search operation for the survivors was being terminated. Now, this incident marks the first fatalities caused by Ansar Allah attacks on Red Sea shipping since June 2024, and the deadliest attack since the Ansar Allah Red Sea shipping campaign began in November of 2023. Among the 10 survivors rescued from the water were 8 Filipino crew members, 1 Indian, and 1 Greek security guard. On Wednesday, July 9th, an Ansar Allah military spokesperson claimed in a televised address that, quote, the Yemeni Navy had responded to rescue a number of the ship's crew, provide them with medical care, and transport them to a safe location. Apparently, a number of these crew members had to be in the water for an extended period of time. It's not clear, based on the information I've seen, whether they died while in the water or they were killed at the time when the vessel was attacked with explosives. Now, according to shipping data analysis, sister vessels of the Eternity Sea had made calls to Israeli ports in the past year. So apparently it was publicly available information that this company's sister ships were doing business with the genocidal entity. The MV Magic Seas and the Eternity Sea were the third and fourth cargo ships sunk by Ansar Allah's forces since Israel's genocide in occupied Palestine began 22 months ago. The first of those four sunk vessels went down to the bottom of the Red Sea in February 2024. Its name was Ruby Mar, and its ownership is somewhat unclear. It appears to have been either Lebanese or British ownership, or both. The second vessel that went down to the bottom of the Red Sea was the MV Tudor. That was sunk in June 2024, so a little over a year ago, and it, like the two most recent sunk vessels, was also Greek-owned. Specifically, the owner of the MV Tudor was Paragon Shipping, which is owned by Greek tycoon and racing car driver Kriton Lendoudis. These Greek shipping companies that I have mentioned are by no means the only Greek shipping companies that do business with the genocidal Israeli entity. For example, and as I reported a few weeks ago, the Greek shipping company Okeanis has done business with Israel since Israel's genocide began. And here you can see a report which was published in May 2024. An Okeanis tanker is reported to have delivered Geno crude to Israel's Ashkelon, and this was the first such delivery of this crude to Ashkelon in 8 years. Now, it's important to note that the family that controls Okeanis also, it's the wealthy Alafouzos family in Greece, one of the most wealthy families in Greece. That family also happens to control Greece's newspaper of record, Kathimerini. This is a newspaper of which I have complained repeatedly over the past 18 months. Why? Because Kathimerini can fairly be described as rabidly pro-Israel. It routinely publishes articles and commentary that are highly supportive of the Greek government's all too cozy relationship with Netanyahu's genocidal regime. And I'm not going to list here all the many ways in which the right-wing pro-genocide government, Greek government of Kyriakos Mitsotakis, has been lending its support, political, military, and economic, to the Netanyahu regime over the past 22 months of in-your-face genocide. Most Greeks, however, do not support Israel or the close ties between Israel and Greece, whatever Kathimerini or its hyper-wealthy owners may feel. And we got some indication of that just last week, as a matter of fact, when Greek dock workers refused to deal with a vessel that was carrying reportedly military-grade steel for the genocidal Israeli entity. On July 8th, that was when the dock workers issued their refusal. The vessel in question, the Ever Golden, is expected to dock in Greece this month, and the Union of Dock Workers of the Greek port of Piraeus, ENEDEP, stated, quote, "We will not unload a single inch of this murderous cargo," close quote. By the way, the military-grade steel on the Ever Golden reportedly comes from India, whose government, of course, Islamophobic, a nationalist government, is closely allied with Israel's genocidal regime. Now, in any case, the sinking of these two vessels leaves no doubt at all of the West's failure, despite its elaborate efforts to stop Ansar Allah. It's a miserable failure, I think one can fairly say. Let's review those efforts briefly, shall we? In December 2023, over 18 months ago, the U.S. and certain of its allies launched a military operation in the Red Sea, which they dubbed the Operation Prosperity Garden. The coalition that has conducted this operation currently has more than 20 members, of which 10 are involved anonymously. They don't want their participation to be known. I think we can infer that at least some of them come from the Arab and Muslim world. And that's exactly why they don't want their participation to be known, because their citizens are likely to be extraordinarily unhappy with them doing anything to assist the genocidal entity. Now, Egypt and Saudi Arabia are absent from the published list of identified participants, but they could be taking part anonymously. They do have very significant economic interests in the free passage of cargo ships through the Red Sea, especially Egypt, because it relies so extensively upon revenue generated by the Suez Canal. But again, we don't know. I've certainly seen no confirmation of their participation in Operation Prosperity Garden. Now, apart from the US, the countries that are known to be participating in this military operation are the United Kingdom, Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Greece, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, and Sri Lanka. The coalition launched its first airstrikes in Yemen in January 2024. As of January 2nd, 2025, 1 year later, Yemeni authorities had recorded 931 US and British airstrikes on Yemen, resulting in 206 deaths and 314 injuries. The naval forces that have been used in Operation Prosperity Garden are enormous, and overwhelmingly from the United States, with significant participation by the British Royal Navy. Among other naval assets, the US has used no less than 4 carrier strike groups in this operation, while the British have added 2 destroyers and 2 frigates to the Armada. Many of the US and British airstrikes on Yemen were launched from Britain's Akrotiri military base, from which I've reported on several occasions. And in fact, on one occasion, I saw fighter jets taking off from Akrotiri as I was situated on the southern coast of Cyprus, and they veered off in the direction of West Asia as I watched them fly by. Now, when Trump returned to the White House in January of this year, Operation Prosperity Garden, despite all of the destruction and death it had visited upon the people of Yemen, had failed utterly to stop Ansar Allah's attacks on Red Sea shipping. So Trump launched a new military operation codenamed Operation Rough Rider. That operation lasted from March until May of this year. On April 27th of this year, the Central Command of the American military, CENTCOM, reported that in Operation Rough Rider, it had struck over 800 targets in Yemen. So nearly the same number of targets that had been struck in the prior military operation under the Biden administration over the course of an entire year. And I want to show you an article reporting, this is from The Guardian, published in May of this year, and it discloses the result of an investigation done by the monitoring group Air Wars. And according to the Air Wars investigation, Operation Rough Rider killed 224 civilians, compared with 258 Yemeni civilians killed by U.S. airstrikes between 2002 and 2024. So in the space of 2 months or so, the Trump administration managed to kill almost as many Yemeni civilians as had been killed over the prior 22 to 23 years of savage warfare by the United States, Britain, and their proxies in the region on the people of Yemen. Quite apart from all of this, during Operation Rough Rider on the U.S. side of casualties, and losses, I should say, the U.S. lost 3 F/A-18 Super Hornet fighter jets, which cost roughly $60 million each. In addition, according to a report by the New York Times, Yemeni forces successfully shot down at least 7 U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drones, each worth around $30 million during Operation Rough Rider. And they came close to hitting, this is the New York Times reporting, an American F-16 and a highly advanced F-35 fighter jet, which is supposed to be basically invisible. On May 6th of this year, Trump announced a ceasefire between U.S. forces and Yemeni forces. Effectively, he brought Operation Rough Rider to an end. And he claimed at the time with much bravado that Ansar Allah had capitulated. Since that time, however, Ansar Allah has repeatedly attacked Israel with missiles and drones. And As we now see, its attacks on Red Sea shipping have intensified, arguably to their greatest level since Israel's genocide began. There has never been a week or even a month during this 22-month operation by Ansar Allah in the Red Sea in which it has sunk more than one vessel. Is that what one could reasonably describe as a capitulation, Mr. President? I'll let you decide, my friends. Now, I want to just share with you also this helpful image, which has been compiled by the UK MTO, and this is basically a graphic depiction of all the vessels that Ansar Allah has attacked. Not that they've sunk, but that they've attacked during the course of the past 22 months. And as you can see, they've been striking traffic heading southward towards, I assume, the Indian Ocean, and those that have been entering into the Red Sea off the southern coast of Yemen. We're talking here about dozens of vessels, probably collectively having a value of certainly hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. And they've attacked general cargo ships, tankers, bulk carriers, container ships, and of course, naval vessels and an LPG carrier. So this is, as I say, an operation that is ongoing, an operation that may well be intensifying. And there is absolutely no indication that either of these two extraordinarily expensive military operations have achieved their objective. Recently, a former U.S. naval officer told Mint Press News that the cost of Operation Prosperity Guardian was roughly $600 million per month. So, you do the math. That is, we're talking here about, $7.2 billion for the entire year-long operation. And this source stated that, quote, operating an aircraft carrier alone is estimated to cost between $6 million and $8 million per day. And in May, U.S. officials told NBC News that Operation Rough Rider, the Trumpian operation, cost the U.S. more than $1 billion. So these two military operations highlight yet again, my friends, the astonishing inability of Western militaries to win wars and the obscene costs our governments incur to lose them. With NATO countries set to raise military spending to the stratospheric level of 5% of GDP annually, way beyond where military spending currently is and has been generally in peacetime in the West, it's more urgent than ever for us to ask, what do our countries gain through all of this military expenditure? And even more so, what do we lose? For example, by way of spending on essential social programs and the well-being of ordinary citizens, and particularly the protection of the most vulnerable members of our society. And by the way, folks, just to add insult to injury, quite apart from all of these costs and the inability of Western militaries, despite the savage force that they bring to bear against their adversaries to actually win wars, the industry sources have just told Hellenic Shipping News that since last week's sinking of the MV Magic Seas and the Eternity Sea, the insurance cost of shipping goods through the Red Sea has more than doubled to around 0.7% of the value of the ship being insured from 0.3% of the value of that ship. So, of course, this is going to make it increasingly expensive to transport goods through the Red Sea. And that is going to have impacts upon businesses and consumers throughout the world. And probably amongst the worst hit places is going to be the European continent itself, which is already taking quite a beating as a result of Ansar Allah's actions. And of course, there is a simple and peaceful way and principled way to bring an end these attacks on Red Sea shipping, and that is to do as Ansar Allah has admirably demanded, and that is that Israel bring its genocide to an end. The peaceful way to end it is for the West to stop shipping weapons to Israel. That would end it right quick. And that is something that Western governments have a profound moral and legal obligation to do in any event, despite whatever demands may be made by Ansar Allah or any other resistance forces. But instead of doing that, what have they done? They've expended probably tens of billions of dollars, quite apart from these two military operations in the Red Sea, to support Israel militarily and economically. They have, worst of all, presided over the mass murder of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Palestinian civilians. They've enabled Israel to launch a criminal war of aggression against Iran, to destroy much of South Lebanon, to subject the people of Syria to relentless bombardment. They've chosen to do those things at enormous expense to the peoples of the region and, in economic terms, to the citizens of Western countries, rather than cut off the flow of weapons, bring an end to the genocide, and restore freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. Such is the quality of leadership or lack thereof that we suffer from in the West nowadays. Now, before I sign off, I would like to highlight two other significant news items from West Asia. The first is a poll which just came out, which showed, as you see here, the Times of Israel reporting, it showed that 74% of Israelis back war-ending deal to free all hostages. And just to drill down into the particulars of this poll, it was done by Israel's Channel 12 News on Friday of this past week. 74% of Israelis, I mentioned, including 60% of people who voted for the coalition of the war criminal Netanyahu, back an agreement with Hamas that would release all the hostages at once in exchange for an end to the Gaza war. So it's not just the Palestinians who desperately want an end to this war. Almost 3/4 of Israelis want an end to this war. And yet Netanyahu refuses to deliver a definitive conclusion and keeps demanding, as the Israeli press has reported, right up until this current day, the green light from the Trump administration to resume the genocide in Gaza once the hostages have been recovered, something which the Israeli press says that the Donald has tacitly agreed to. The poll also found that just 8% of respondents backed the deal being advanced by Netanyahu, which would release half of the hostages and set the stage for negotiations on a permanent ceasefire and the release of the rest of the hostages. Presumably, most Israelis have understood, as would anybody who has even a passing familiarity with Netanyahu's machinations and lies, that any negotiations toward a permanent ceasefire would be a complete and utter fraud, and that Netanyahu and his extremist co-criminals in his cabinet would certainly resume the genocide after having recovered a few hostages if they're permitted to do so. And by the way, according to this poll, a mere 12% rejected any deal that includes an end to the war. So a very small proportion, a little more than 10% of the Israeli population, agrees with the most extreme elements in Netanyahu's cabinet that this war must go on at any cost. Now, asked why Netanyahu was insisting on a phased hostage deal, 49% of respondents said his reasons were political. Only 36% said his reasons were security-oriented, and 15% said they didn't know. Meanwhile, 55% of respondents to the Channel 12 poll said Netanyahu's handling of the war in Gaza was bad, as opposed to 41% who said it was good. And finally, folks, I want to share with you a video on a separate but related matter, I suppose, of the eulogy delivered by the widow of an Israeli terrorist who was killed in Gaza during the past few days. The name of this terrorist, by the way, was Avraham Azulai. He was a combat engineer in Israel's genocide forces. Resistance fighters, and we know this because a video of the incident was published by them. What they did was there were two combat engineering vehicles. I believe one was a D9 bulldozer, and the other one was another massive vehicle that was being used to demolish buildings. You can see this in the video. The D9 bulldozer was struck by an RPG or a Yasin shell, and immediately following the explosion, you can see the soldier who was operating the other piece of machinery jump off and begin to run away. And apparently he feared that he would be next. There's absolutely no indication that he turned and engaged in combat with the forces that had just destroyed the D9 bulldozer. So in the aftermath of this, he was laid to rest. And here is what his widow had to say.
אברהם היה אחד, היה איש גדול שעושה דברים גדולים, לא פחדת מכלום, היית כל כך מאושר במשימה שלך, האמנת בה, וכל הזמן הזה ניסית לשכנע אותי להאמין גם. כל יום שהיית חוזר מעזה לישון איתי, היית מספר לי כמה בתים הרסת היום, ושאתם מתקדמים מאוד במשימה לסיים את המלחמה הזאת. הייתם מוכן למות כדי שהמלחמה הזאת תסתיים כבר. אני אומרת לכם, תסיימו כבר את המלחמה הזאת, תסיימו אותה. כמה שיותר מהר תכבשו את עזה. אין במקום לרוע טהור שרואה את האיש הכי יפה בעולם ופשוט מחליט לירות בו. אין מקום לרוע הזה שם. יש במקום רק לחיים, לצחוק של ילדים, לשמחה, למשפחות יהודיות וקדושות שחיות בשביל לחיות, שמתרגשות מכל גרגר באדמה הזאת. אתה נלחמת על הארץ הזאת ומגיע לך לדעת שבסוף כבשו את הרצועה המסריחה הזאת. אנחנו נקים שם חווה ואנחנו נקום שם. אני מבטיחה לך. מאמי כל כך אהבת את הארץ וחלמת ליישב אותה בחווה שלנו.
Now, I can assure you, folks, that I take no pleasure whatsoever in seeing family members, any family, grieve the loss of a loved one. But these comments from this woman really highlight, I think, the sheer and utter depravity into which Israeli society has fallen. She described this soldier who was killed while he was in the process of destroying what appear in the video to be Palestinian homes in the 22nd month of a genocide. She described him as a great man who did great things. She said he was so happy to be participating in this war, which, as any rational person with a conscience knows, is a genocide. Every day, she said, when he came back home from Gaza, he told her how many houses he demolished today, expressing joy over the war crimes that he was committing. Gaza, she said, is, quote, pure evil, close quote. The pure evil, apparently, in her mind, is not the baby killers who have massacred and disabled tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinian children, not those who are depriving the babies of Gaza of baby food, starving them to death, or who are shooting Palestinian children in the head, forcing them to undergo amputations without anesthetic, depriving them of their parents, their siblings, displacing them, terrorizing them. No, those aren't the persons who are exhibiting pure evil. It's the victims, Israel's victims, in her mind, who constitute pure evil. Then she said there's only room for holy Jewish families, as though, non-Jewish families are unholy. And then she said she wants them to conquer that filthy strip, again, dehumanizing the entire population of the Gaza Strip, as so many Israelis have done openly throughout this horror show. And finally, she says, We'll set up a farm there, I promise you. Well, for what it's worth, my friends, I feel that I can assure this grieving widow of two things. First, Israel has not and will not conquer the Gaza Strip. And secondly, she will never set up a farm there. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada on July 14th, 2025.